Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of the UES Horizon. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines and the gentle beeping of computer systems. Outside the large windows, stars moved past like tiny white dots as the ship traveled through space at incredible speed. Jake had been captain of the Horizon for 3 years now. The ship was built for deep space exploration, designed to go where no human had gone before. It was not the biggest ship in the Earth fleet, but it was fast and strong. More importantly, it had a crew that Jake trusted with his life. The bridge was the heart of the ship. It was a large room with screens and control panels everywhere. In the center sat the captain's chair, where Jake spent most of his time when they were traveling. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, monitoring the ship's systems and watching for anything unusual. Lieutenant Lisa Grant sat at the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been with the ship for 2 years and was one of the best communications officers in the fleet. Her job was to listen for any signals from other ships, planets, or space stations. At the science station, Dr. Alex Carter studied readings from the ship's sensors. Alex was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and glasses. He had spent 15 years studying space before joining the Horizon. If there was something strange out there, Alex would find it. Helmsman Tony Rodriguez controlled where the ship went. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless spoken to, but he could fly the ship better than anyone Jake had ever seen. His hands moved over the controls like a musician playing an instrument. Navigator Emma Watson worked next to Tony. She was tall and thin, with long blonde hair that she always kept tied back. Her job was to make sure they knew exactly where they were at all times. In the vastness of space, getting lost could mean death. The Horizon had been traveling for 3 months now. Moving through the outer parts of human space, they were looking for new planets, new life, anything that might be useful to Earth. So far, they had found empty space and dead rocks. Jake was starting to wonder if this trip would be another waste of time.
"Captain?"
Lisa said suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet of the bridge. "I'm picking up something on the emergency channels." Jake turned toward her. "What kind of something?" Lisa frowned at her screen, adjusting controls and listening carefully through her headphones. "It's a distress signal, sir, but it's not like anything I've heard before." "Human?" Jake asked, walking over to her station. "No, sir, definitely not human. The patterns are all wrong. The frequency is different too. But the basic structure matches the universal distress codes we learned about in training." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Universal distress codes had been created by Earth scientists 50 years ago, based on mathematical patterns that any intelligent species should be able to understand. They had never been used for real contact with aliens, until now.
"Can you
"Clean it up?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, sir. The signal is very weak and full of static. It's coming from far away." Lisa worked at her controls, trying to make the signal clearer. "There, can you hear it now?" Jake listened as a strange sound filled the bridge. It was like music, but not quite. The tones went up and down in patterns that seemed almost like a language. But underneath the alien sounds, Jake could hear the universal distress codes. Short beeps and long tones that meant the same thing in any language. "Help us." "Alex, I need you to analyze this," Jake said. Dr. Carter hurried over from his station, pulling out a portable scanner. He pointed it at Lisa's communications equipment and watched as numbers and graphs appeared on his screen. "Fascinating," he said after a moment. "The signal is definitely artificial. Made by machines, not natural space phenomena. Whoever sent it understands basic mathematics." "How far away?" Jake asked. Alex looked at his readings. "Based on the signal strength and the time delay, I'd say about 12 light years. That would put it in the Kepler 442 system." Jake knew that name. Kepler 442 was a star system that Earth's telescopes had discovered years ago. It had planets, and at least one of them might be able to support life. But no human ship had ever been there. It was too far away and too dangerous. "Emma, how long to get there?" Jake asked. The navigator checked her charts. "At maximum warp. 2 days, sir. But Captain, We don't have permission to leave our patrol area. Jake stood quietly for a moment, thinking. Earth Command had given them strict orders. They were supposed to stay in their assigned area and report anything unusual. They were not supposed to go running off to investigate alien signals, especially not signals from unexplored systems. But someone out there was in trouble. Someone had sent a distress call into the void, hoping that anyone who heard it would help. Jake thought about what he would want if the horizon was in danger and needed help. He would want whoever heard their call to come, no matter what their orders said. Lisa, keep working on that signal. I want to know everything we can learn about it. Alex, start analyzing the Kepler 442 system. I want to know what we're flying into. Sir, Emma said carefully. Are we actually going there? Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These were good people. People he had trained and fought beside. They trusted him to make the right decisions, even when those decisions were difficult. Tony set course for Kepler 442, maximum warp.
Nice.
Sir, Tony said, his hands already moving over the controls. As the ship turned toward the distant star system, Jake felt the familiar feeling of the warp drive engaging. The stars outside changed direction, and the ship began to move faster than light, bending space around it to travel impossible distances. Signals getting stronger, Lisa reported. I think I can make out more details now. She worked at her station, and slowly the alien sounds became clearer. Jake could hear what sounded like voices, speaking in a language unlike anything he had ever heard. The voices sounded desperate, frightened. Even without understanding the words, Jake could tell that whoever was sending the signal was in real trouble. I'm detecting multiple sources, Lisa said. It's not just one ship. There are dozens of them, all sending distress signals. A whole fleet in trouble, Alex said grimly. Whatever's happening out there, it's big. Jake stood in the center of the bridge, watching the stars streak by outside. In 2 days, they would arrive at Kepler 442. They would make first contact. With an alien species, they might be flying into a war zone, or worse, but they were going anyway. Because when someone sent a distress call into the darkness of space, humans answered. That was what made them different from all the other species they might meet out there. Humans didn't abandon people in trouble, even if those people were aliens they had never seen before. The horizon flew through the night toward the unknown, carrying its crew toward a meeting that would change everything. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and more distant. Ahead of them, aliens waited in the darkness, hoping for rescue. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched the stars, knowing that in 2 days, nothing would ever be the same again. 2 days passed like a dream. The crew of the Horizon worked around the clock, trying to learn everything they could about the alien signal and the star system they were approaching. Dr. Alex Carter barely slept, studying star charts and sensor readings. Lisa Grant listened to the alien voices for hours, trying to understand their language. We're about to drop out of warp, Tony Rodriguez announced from his position at the helm. His hands moved steadily over the controls, preparing the ship for normal space. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the bridge, feeling his heart pound with excitement and fear. In a few seconds, they would see their first alien world. They would make contact with beings from another planet. Everything humanity had dreamed about for centuries was about to happen. Dropping out of warp in 3, 2, 1, Tony said. Stars stopped moving. The ship slowed from faster than light speed to normal space travel. Outside the windows, Jake could see a yellow sun that looked much like Earth's sun. But as the ship's sensors began to work, the peaceful scene changed. Completely. Oh my God. Emma Watson whispered from her navigation station. The main screen lit up with what the ship's computers were seeing. Space around the fourth planet was full of wreckage. Pieces of metal and debris floated everywhere, glowing with the heat of recent explosions. Some pieces were so big that they had to be from ships the size of city blocks. There's a battle going on, Alex said, his voice tight with shock. Look at the energy readings. Jake stared at the screen. Near the planet, he could see flashes of light. Ships were firing weapons at each other. Even from this distance, he could tell that the battle was huge. There had to be hundreds of ships fighting. Can you tell who's winning? Jake asked. Lisa? worked at her station, trying to sort through all the radio signals coming from the battle. The distress signals are getting weaker, sir. I think whoever called for help is losing. Put it on screen. Maximum magnification. The main screen changed to show the battle up close. Jake saw ships unlike anything he had ever imagined. Were beautiful, made of what looked like crystal or glass. They moved gracefully through space, their smooth hulls reflecting the light of the sun. But these pretty ships were being destroyed. The ships attacking them were dark and ugly. They were shaped like arrows or knives, painted black with red markings. They moved fast and struck hard, and everywhere they went, the crystal ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The crystal ships matched the source of our distress signal, Alex reported. They're the ones who called for help. As they watched, another crystal ship died. Its hull cracked like an egg and bright light poured out before it exploded completely. Jake felt sick watching it happen. How many are left? He asked. Maybe 50 crystal ships, Emma said, counting the contacts on her screen. But there are at least 200 of the dark ships. The good guys are badly outnumbered. Jake made a decision. Take us in. Full speed toward the planet. Sir, Tony said carefully. Are you sure? We don't know anything about these aliens. We don't know why they're fighting. I know that someone asked for help, Jake said firmly. And I know that the ones asking for help are losing. That's enough for me. The horizon moved toward the battle at full speed. As they got closer, the radio signals became clearer. Lisa was able to separate the different voices and translate some of the universal distress codes, they call themselves. The Zelani, she reported. The crystal ships belong to the Zelani. They're saying that their home planet is under attack. The dark ships belong to something called the Korthok. What do we know about the Korthok? Jake asked. Alex checked his computers. Nothing good, sir. From what I can understand of the Zelani transmissions, the Korthok are conquerors. They attack planets, destroy the people living there, and take everything valuable. They've already destroyed dozens of worlds. And now, they're attacking the Zelani homeworld. Jake said grimly. Sir, Emma said, one of the crystal ships is moving toward us. I think they've spotted us. Jake looked at the screen. A single Zelani ship had broken away from the battle and was approaching the horizon. It was badly damaged, with cracks running along its crystal hull. But it was still beautiful, even hurt. You're trying to communicate, Lisa said. I'm getting a signal on the emergency channel. Put it through, Jake ordered. The bridge filled with a sound like wind chimes mixed with music. It was the most beautiful voice Jake had ever heard, but it was filled with sadness and fear. Lisa, can you translate? Jake asked. I'm trying, sir. The computer is working on it. Lisa listened carefully, her hands moving over her controls. I think I've got it. The voice is saying, unknown vessel. What? This is Commander Zathera of the Zelani Defense Fleet. We thank you for responding to our distress call. What? But you must flee immediately. The Korthok show no mercy to any who oppose them. What? Tell them this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Horizon. Tell them we're here to help. Lisa translated Jake's words into the universal code and sent them to the Zelani ship. There was a long pause before the musical voice replied. She says, Captain Morrison, your courage honors your species. But your vessel appears small compared to the Korthok warships. Cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves for our cause. The Korthok have already destroyed our orbital defenses and landed troops on our homeworld. We are defeated. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. He looked at the screen, watching more Zelani ships die while the ugly Korthok vessels closed in for the kill. These aliens had asked for help, and help had come. But they thought one human ship was too small to matter. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Tell Commander Zathera that she doesn't need to worry about us, Jake said. We didn't come all this way just to watch her people die. As Lisa translated, Jake turned to his crew. All stations, prepare for battle. I want full power to weapons and shields. We're going to show these Korthok what happens when they mess with people under human protection. Dr. Carter looked up from his science station. Sir, the Korthok ships are much larger than us. Some of those vessels are 10 times the size of the Horizon. Size doesn't matter, Jake said calmly. What matters is how hard you hit and how much damage you can take. The Horizon was built by humans, and humans know how to fight. On the screen, they could see 3 Korthok destroyers breaking away from the main battle. The dark ships were moving toward the Horizon, probably curious about the newcomer. "They're coming to investigate us," Emma reported. 3 ships, each about 5 times our size. "Perfect," Jake said. "Let them come. Lisa, see if you can get a communication channel with the Korthok." "I'm trying, sir. Yes, I've got something. They're hailing us." "Put it on screen." The main display changed to show the inside of a Korthok ship. Jake found himself looking at a creature that gave him nightmares. It looked like a giant lizard, walking on 2 legs with dark scales and yellow eyes that glowed with cruel intelligence. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth, and when it smiled, Jake felt his skin crawl. "Small vessel," the creature said in a voice like grinding metal, "you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your pathetic crystal friends cannot save you now." Jake looked at the alien monster and smiled back. But his smile was different. It was the smile of a predator who had just found prey. "We're not the ones who need saving," Jake said quietly. The Korthok creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You amuse me, tiny human. Watch as we destroy your ship with 1 shot." The communication ended. On the tactical display, Jake could see the 3 Korthok destroyers moving into attack position. They were huge, dark, and covered with weapons. Next to them, the Horizon looked like a toy. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's intercom. "We are about to engage alien hostiles. These creatures have attacked innocent people and destroyed their world. We're going to show them that humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. All stations battle ready." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years, even though they had never expected to fight aliens. The Horizon might be small, but it was tough, and its crew knew how to use every advantage they had. "First Korthok ship is opening fire," Emma reported. Jake watched the screen as bright energy beams shot toward his ship. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy a city, but Jake wasn't worried. The Horizon had been built to fight in space. And space was a dangerous place. "Shields holding," Alex reported, "no damage." The Korthok creature's confident expression changed to confusion. Its weapons should have destroyed the little human ship instantly. Instead, the Horizon sat in space, completely undamaged. "Now it's our turn," Jake said calmly. "Fire." The battle in space was over, but the war was not finished. As the crew of the Horizon celebrated their victory, Dr. Alex Carter was studying the readings from the planet below. What he found made his blood run cold. Captain Alex said urgently, "You need to see this." Jake Morrison walked over to the science station, still feeling the excitement of their victory against the Korthok fleet. "What is it, Alex?" "Massive energy signatures on the planet's surface," Alex replied, pointing to his screen. "The Korthok didn't just attack from space. They landed ground forces before we arrived. There are thousands of them down there, fighting the Zelani in their cities." Jake felt his stomach drop. They had saved the Zelani fleet, but the enemy was already on the ground. Ground fighting was different from space combat. It was close, brutal, and personal. Many more people would die before this was over. "How many?" Jake asked. "At least 50,000 Korthok soldiers," Alex said grimly. "Maybe more. They landed in the major cities and are fighting house to house. The Zelani are trying to defend their homes, but they're not soldiers. They're scientists. Artists, farmers. They don't know how to fight a war." On the main screen, Commander Zethara appeared. The Zelani leader looked exhausted and worried. "Captain Morrison, we have a problem. While you were saving our fleet, Korthok ground forces have taken control of most of our major cities. Our people are trapped and dying." "What kind of ground forces do you have?" Jake asked. "Very few," the commander admitted. "We are a peaceful people. We have some security officers and a small planetary guard, but they are not trained for this kind of warfare. The Korthok soldiers are experienced killers. They have better weapons and armor than our defenders." Jake looked around his bridge. At his crew, the Horizon was an exploration ship, not a military vessel. They only had 24 Marines aboard, led by a tough sergeant named Pete Collins. 24 soldiers against 50,000 enemies seemed impossible, but Jake had learned something important during his years in space. Humans were different from other species in ways that weren't always obvious. They came from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. Every human alive was the descendant of survivors, people who had lived through ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. "Get me Sergeant Collins," Jake ordered. Pete Collins appeared on the screen a few minutes later. He was a big man with scars on his face and hands that spoke of many battles. He'd served in the Earth Defense Forces for 15 years before, joining the Horizon's crew. If anyone could help the Zelani on the ground, it was Pete and his Marines. "You wanted to see me, Captain?" Pete asked. "We have a situation on the planet below," Jake explained. 50,000 Korthok soldiers are attacking civilian targets. The local defenders can't stop them. I need to know if 24 Marines can make a difference." Pete was quiet for a moment, thinking. What kind of enemies are we talking about? What are their weapons and tactics? Alex pulled up information about the Korthok ground forces on his screen. Large reptilian creatures, similar to the ones we saw on their ships, could carry energy weapons and wear heavy armor. They seem to prefer direct assault tactics, using their size and strength to overwhelm defenders. "Sounds like they're used to fighting people who can't fight back," Pete said with a cold smile. "That's their first mistake. What about the terrain?" "Mixed. Urban and forest environments," Alex replied. "The Zelani cities are built among tall trees and natural rock formations. Lots of cover and concealment opportunities." Pete nodded slowly. "We can work with that. Captain, if you can get us to the surface, my Marines can cause some serious problems for these lizards. We might not be able to defeat 50,000 enemies, but we can sure make them wish they had stayed home." "What do you need?" Jake asked. "Weapons, extra ammunition, and medical supplies," Pete said immediately. "And I want to talk to the local defenders, see if we can coordinate our efforts. 24 humans working alone can do a lot of damage. 24 humans working with local allies can win a war." Jake made his decision. "Do it. Take everything you need. I'll have Tony drop you at the largest city. That seems to be where the heaviest fighting is happening." As Pete and his Marines prepared for combat, Dr. Alex Carter was studying something that amazed him. He was monitoring the crew's vital signs during the battle, and what he saw was incredible. Most alien species, when faced with deadly combat, would show signs of extreme stress. Their heart rates would spike, their nervous systems would flood with stress hormones, and their decision-making abilities would suffer. Many would simply freeze up or panic. The humans on the horizon were different. During the space battle, their heart rates had increased, but not from fear. It was excitement, anticipation, focus. Their reflexes had become faster, their thinking clearer. Instead of being weakened by combat stress, they seemed to thrive on it. "Fascinating," Alex muttered to himself as he studied the data. "We're not just adapted for survival. We're adapted for war." Medical Officer Dr. Kate Sullivan noticed what Alex was doing. "Find something interesting?" she asked. "Look at these readings," Alex said, showing her his screen. During combat, human adrenaline levels increased by 400%. But instead of causing panic or confusion, it enhances performance. Faster reaction times, improved strength, better coordination. Kate nodded. "That's the fight-or-flight response. Most species flee when threatened. Humans fight. Earth was so dangerous that running away usually meant death. Better to stand and fight even against impossible odds." "And that's what we're doing now," Alex said quietly.
24 humans against 50,000 aliens. On any other world, that would be suicide, but we're not from any other world.
The planet's surface, Pete Collins and his Marines were about to prove Alex's theory correct. They landed in the middle of the largest Zelani city, where the fighting was heaviest. The Marines wore power armor that made them look like metal giants, and they carried weapons that could punch through almost any armor. The first Korthok patrol they encountered learned a hard lesson about human warfare. The alien soldiers were used to fighting Zelani civilians who ran away when attacked, They were not prepared for humans who ran toward danger. Marine. Corporal Linda Hayes spotted the Korthok patrol from 3 blocks away. 6 large reptilian soldiers were moving through the city, destroying buildings and hunting for Zelani civilians to capture or kill. Contacts, 6 enemy soldiers, moving east on Main Street. Linda reported through her radio. "Let's take them, Pete," replied simply. The Marines moved through the city like ghosts. They used every piece of cover, every shadow, every advantage the urban terrain provided. The Korthok were big and strong, but they were also loud and clumsy. They never knew that humans were there until it was too late. Linda's rifle fired once, a sharp crack that echoed off the buildings. The lead Korthok soldier dropped, a smoking hole in his chest armor. Before the others could react, the rest of the Marines opened fire. The battle lasted 15 seconds. When it was over, 6 Korthok soldiers lay dead in the street, and not 1 human had been scratched. It was almost too easy, said Marine Private Ryan Blake. "Don't get overconfident," Pete warned. "That was just a patrol. Wait until we meet their main forces." They didn't have to wait long. As the Marines moved deeper into the city, they began to encounter larger groups of Korthok soldiers. Squads of 20 or 30 aliens armed with heavy weapons and supported by armored vehicles. Each battle was fierce, but the result was always the same. The humans were faster, smarter, and more adaptable than their enemies. They used tactics the Korthok had never seen before, appearing from nowhere to strike hard and fast before disappearing again. "What are these creatures?" a Korthok officer radioed to his commanders. "They fight like demons. They don't retreat, even when outnumbered. They don't seem to feel fear." The Korthok were right to be afraid. Humans had spent millions of years learning to fight predators, natural disasters, disease, and each other. They had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts. They had built civilizations from nothing and defended them against impossible odds. Every human Marine on the planet was the product of that history. They carried the DNA of survivors, the instincts of warriors, the technology of a species that had conquered its own death world. As the day wore on, reports began reaching the Korthok command posts. Patrols were disappearing. Supply convoys were being destroyed. Communication networks were being disrupted. A force of only 24 humans was causing chaos among 50,000 alien soldiers. "Impossible," the Korthok ground commander snarled. 24 soldiers cannot defeat an army." But they weren't just soldiers. They were humans from Earth, the deadliest world in the galaxy. And they were just getting started. The war on the planet's surface had been going on for 6 hours. Sergeant Pete Collins and his Marines had been fighting nonstop, moving through the Zelani cities like invisible death. Every time the Korthok thought they had found the humans, the Marines would disappear into the shadows and strike somewhere else. Pete crouched behind a broken wall, watching a group of Korthok soldiers march down the street. His armor's computer counted 37 enemies, all carrying heavy weapons. Under normal circumstances, 4 Marines against 37 alien soldiers would be suicide. But these were not normal circumstances. "Ryan, Linda, position report," Pete whispered into his radio. "In position on the roof," replied Corporal Linda Hayes. She was 2 buildings away with a sniper rifle, ready to provide covering fire. "Ready?" "With the explosives," reported Private Ryan Blake from the basement of a nearby building. He had spent the last hour setting up surprises for the Korthok patrol. Pete smiled grimly. The aliens had walked straight into a trap. They were so confident in their numbers and firepower that they never thought to check for ambushes. That overconfidence was going to get them killed. "Execute," Pete ordered. The street exploded. Ryan's carefully placed charges went off simultaneously, turning the road into a crater filled with smoke and debris.
"Half the Korthok patrol
disappeared in the explosion. The survivors stumbled around blindly, trying to figure out what had happened. Linda's sniper rifle began picking them off, one by one. Each shot was perfectly aimed, finding the weak spots in Korthok armor that her computer had identified. The alien soldiers fell without knowing where the shots were coming from. Pete and the 4th Marine, Private Kevin Stone, attacked from the front. They moved fast and low, using the smoke as cover. Their assault rifles fired explosive rounds that could punch through tank armor. The remaining Korthok soldiers died before they could even return fire. Area clear, Pete reported. 37 enemies eliminated. No human casualties. Similar reports were coming in from all over the city. The 24 human Marines had broken into 6 teams of 4, and each team was causing massive damage to the Korthok occupation forces. Supply depots were exploding. Communication towers were falling. Armored vehicles were being destroyed by weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. In orbit, above the planet, Captain Jake Morrison was watching the battle through the horizon's sensors. The reports from the surface were almost unbelievable. His small force of Marines was fighting an army 50 times their size and winning. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Alex Carter, studying the tactical displays. "The numbers don't make sense." "The numbers never mattered," replied Dr. Kate Sullivan. "Look at the biological data from the Marines. Their stress hormone levels are elevated, but their performance is actually improving under combat conditions. Most species would be exhausted after 6 hours of constant fighting, or people are just getting warmed up." Jake nodded. "Humans evolved on a death world. Every day of our evolution was a fight for survival against predators, disease, natural disasters, and each other. We're not just adapted to handle stress, we're designed to excel under it." Surface, Pete and his team had linked up with a group of Zelani defenders. The aliens were amazed by what they had seen the humans accomplish. "Your warriors fight like nothing we have ever witnessed," said a Zelani officer named Veltar. "The Korthok are fleeing from areas where they know humans are present. Call you the Shadow Killers and speak your name with fear." "We're just getting started," Pete replied. "What's the situation in the other cities?" Bad Veltar admitted. "The Korthok control most of the major population centers. ID. Thousands of our people are trapped or captured. Without help, they will all die." Pete studied the tactical map on his armor's display. The Korthok had spread their forces across dozens of cities. Thinking that their superior numbers would allow them to control everything, they were about to learn that spreading out just made them easier targets. "We're going to hit their command center," Pete decided. "If we can cut off their leadership, their whole operation will fall apart." The Korthok ground command was located in the planet's capital city, housed in what used to be the Zelani government building. It was heavily defended by over 1,000 alien soldiers and protected by energy, shields, and automated weapons. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a position would require an army. Pete had 4 Marines and a dozen Zelani volunteers. But Pete wasn't planning a normal attack. "Ryan, how much explosive do we have left?" Pete asked. "Linda, what's your ammunition count?" 200 sniper rounds, plus whatever I can scavenge from dead Korthok," Linda answered. Pete looked at the enemy command center through his binoculars. It was a fortress, but every fortress had weaknesses. The humans had spent centuries learning how to break fortresses. "Here's the plan," Pete said. "We're going to make them think we're attacking from the east. Big explosions, lots of noise, full frontal assault. While they're focused on that, Linda will infiltrate from the west and take out their communications. Ryan will plant charges on the main support columns. When this building comes down, their whole command structure goes with it." The attack began at sunset. Pete and Kevin, supported by the Zelani volunteers, launched a fierce assault on the eastern side of the command center. They used every weapon they had, creating explosions and gunfire that lit up the evening sky. The Korthok response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of soldiers poured out of the building to repel the attack. Energy weapons filled the air with deadly beams. The aliens were confident that their superior numbers would crush the small human force. While the battle raged in the east, Linda moved like a ghost through the western part of the building. Her power armor made her nearly invisible to Korthok sensors, and her training allowed her to move without making a sound. She reached the communication center without being detected. The Korthok communications officer never knew she was there. Linda's knife found the gap in his armor, and he died silently. Within minutes, she had destroyed every piece of communication equipment in the room. The Korthok command was now blind and deaf. Meanwhile, Ryan was in the basement, placing explosive charges on the building's main support columns. The structure was strong, but Ryan knew exactly where to place the charges for maximum effect. When these explosives went off, the entire building would collapse. Charges set, Ryan reported over the radio. Everyone needs to get clear in the next 5 minutes. Pete and Kevin began their withdrawal, fighting their way back through the Korthok forces. The aliens followed them, thinking they were pursuing a defeated enemy. They didn't realize they were running away from their own headquarters just as it was about to be destroyed. The building came down with a roar that could be heard across the city. 50 stories of steel and concrete collapsed in on itself, taking with it the entire Korthok command structure. Hundreds of enemy officers and their communication equipment were buried under tons of rubble. The effect on the Korthok forces was immediate. Without central command, individual units began to panic. Some tried to retreat to their landing sites. Others attempted to surrender to the Zelani. Most just stood around in confusion, waiting for orders that would never come. All Marine teams, this is Collins, Pete announced over the radio. Command structures eliminated. Begin Phase 2. Hunt down and destroy all remaining enemy forces. The final battle lasted until dawn. Without coordination or leadership, the Korthok ground forces were defeated in detail. Small groups of aliens were surrounded and destroyed by combined human and Zelani forces. Those who tried to escape to their ships found the landing, sites blocked by Zelani fighters and human marines. As the sun rose over the Zelani homeworld, the last Korthok soldier surrendered. An army of 50,000 conquerors had been defeated by 24 humans and their alien allies. In orbit, Captain Jake Morrison received the final report from Pete Collins. Surface operations complete, Captain. All enemy forces eliminated or captured. Zelani cities are secure. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Mate answered. A distress call from strangers and ended up saving an entire civilization. Word of this victory would spread throughout the galaxy, carrying a simple message. Humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. Set course for Earth, Jake ordered. It's time to report our first contact with alien life, as the horizon. Prepared to leave the system, Commander Zathera sent one final message. Captain Morrison, your species has given us more than victory. You have given us hope. The galaxy is a dangerous place, but knowing that humans are among the stars makes it feel safer. Jake smiled. We'll be back if you need us. Humans keep their promises. The ship turned toward home, carrying news that would change everything. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not with words or diplomacy, but with the thunder of weapons and the courage of warriors. The universe would never be the same. 6 months after the battle at the Zelani homeworld, the galaxy was a very different place. Word of what had happened had spread from star system to star system, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees. Everyone wanted to know about the humans. The mysterious warriors from a world called Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the conference room aboard the UES Horizon, looking at reports from across known space. The table was covered with messages from dozens of alien species, all asking the same questions. Who were these humans? Where did they come from? And most importantly, could they be trusted? Another distress call, announced Communications Officer Lisa Grant as she entered the room. This one is from the Vaxxery Republic. They're being attacked by something called the Hegemony of Suns. Jake looked at the message on his tablet. Vaxxery were a peaceful trading people who lived on floating cities above the clouds of gas giant planets. They had no military to speak of, just merchant ships and cargo haulers. The Hegemony of Suns was apparently a group of aggressive species who conquered weaker civilizations for profit. How many ships do they have? Jake asked. The Vaxxeries say the Hegemony has over 300 warships in their attack fleet, Lisa replied. The Vaxxery have about 50 cargo ships with improvised weapons. Dr. Alex Carter looked up from his own reports. The Vaxxery aren't fighters, Captain. They're merchants and engineers. Without help, they'll be wiped out in days. Jake made his decision quickly. Set course for the Vaxxery system. Full speed. Sir, said Navigator Emma Watson, Earth Command has ordered us to return home for debriefing about the Zelani incident. If we respond to another distress call, we'll be directly disobeying orders. Jake smiled grimly. Then we'll be in good company. The Zelani are still sending us thank you messages. I think Earth Command will understand when we explain the situation. The truth was, Earth Command was still trying to figure out what to do about humanity's sudden emergence as a galactic power. The successful defense of the Zelani homeworld had made humans famous throughout known space. Some species wanted to become allies. Others were afraid of what the humans might do next. As the horizon traveled toward the Vaxery system, Jake received a communication from an unexpected source. The screen showed a familiar face, Commander Zethara of the Zelani Defense Fleet. Captain Morrison, the Zelani leader said, her musical voice filled with excitement. We have been monitoring galactic communications. We know you are responding to another distress call. Word travels fast, Jake replied. We wanted you to know that you are not going alone this time, Zethara continued. A fleet of 20 Zelani warships is already en route to the Vaxery system. We will fight beside you against this hegemony of suns. Jake felt a surge of pride. The Zelani had been peaceful scientists and artists before the Korthok attacked them. Now they were building warships and training soldiers. They had learned that sometimes the only way to protect peace was to be ready for war. That's good news, Jake said. But 20 ships might not be enough. The hegemony has 15 times that number. We know, Zethara replied with what might have been a smile. That is why we sent messages to other species as well. The humans saved us when no one else would. Now it is time for the galaxy to return the favor. The space around the gas giant planets was filled with ships from dozens of different species. There were sleek Andorian cruisers, massive Chronon battleships, swift Tyrillian destroyers, and many others that Jake didn't recognize. My God, whispered helmsman Tony Rodriguez. There must be 500 ships out there. More arriving every hour, reported Dr. Carter from his science station. I'm detecting vessels from at least 30 different species. This is the largest fleet ever assembled in recorded galactic history. The leader of this unprecedented alliance was an ancient being called Admiral Korvash of the Tyrillian Empire. His species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years, and his voice carried the weight of that experience when he spoke to the assembled fleet. For too long, we have allowed bullies and conquerors to prey upon the weak, Admiral Korvash announced on the General Communication Channel. The Korthok, the hegemony of suns, and others like them, think that might makes right. Today we proved them wrong. Jake found himself in command of a section of the fleet that included ships from 6 different species. It was strange giving orders to alien captains, but they all seemed eager to follow human leadership. The victory at the Zelani homeworld had given humans a reputation as master tacticians and fearless fighters. The hegemony of Sun's fleet was indeed massive. 300 warships of various sizes and designs, all painted in the dark colors that aggressive species seemed to prefer. They had been attacking the Vaxery cities for 3 days, destroying the beautiful floating platforms and capturing thousands of civilians. This is Admiral Korvash II, the hegemony fleet, the Tyrillian leader, broadcast on all frequencies. You will cease your attacks immediately and withdraw from this system. If you refuse, you will face the consequences. The response from the hegemony was predictably arrogant. It's unknown fleet. You are interfering in a legitimate conquest operation. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. We have conquered 47 worlds and defeated every enemy we have faced. Then you haven't faced humans yet. Jake said quietly into his communicator. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, instead of the usual chaotic free-for-all that characterized most space battles. The Allied fleet moved with precision and coordination. Ships from different species worked together as if they had been training for years. The humans had shared their tactical doctrines with their allies, teaching them about concentrated firepower, coordinated attacks, and flexible formations. The result was devastating to the hegemony fleet, which had expected to face the usual disorganized resistance. Their formation is collapsing, reported Weapons Officer Danny Pierce as he watched the tactical display. The hegemony ships don't know how to fight against coordinated attacks. Jake nodded. That's because they're used to picking on civilians and weak defenders. When they face real opposition, they fall apart. The battle lasted only 4 hours. When it was over, the hegemony of suns had lost 2/3 of their fleet. The survivors fled the system in complete disorder. Their reputation as unstoppable conquerors shattered forever. But the real victory was not military, it was political and social. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of different species had worked together to defeat a common enemy. The alliance that had formed to help the Vaxery continued to exist after the battle was won. "We should formalize this," Admiral Corvash suggested during a conference of fleet commanders. "Create a permanent organization dedicated to protecting peaceful species from aggressive conquerors." The idea spread quickly through the participating fleets. Within days, representatives from 43 different species had signed the Charter of Mutual Defense. The new organization was called the Galactic Defense Alliance. Its headquarters would be located on a neutral world chosen by all member species. Jake Morrison found himself appointed as the first human representative to the Alliance Council. It was a position he had never wanted and never trained for, but it was one that fell to him by virtue of being the human who had started it all. "How did this happen?" Jake asked Dr. Carter as they stood on the observation deck of a massive space station that was being built to serve as the Alliance headquarters. "You answered a distress call," Carter replied simply. "You showed the galaxy that someone was willing to fight for strangers, to risk everything for people they had never met. That inspired others to be brave too." Outside the windows, Jake could see ships from dozens of worlds working together to build something new. Humans, Zelani, Vaxery, Tyrillians, and many others were creating a future where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. "The Korthok started something when they attacked the Zelani," Jake said thoughtfully. "They thought they were conquering another helpless world. Instead, they woke up the galaxy." Carter nodded. "And now the galaxy is a safer place for everyone, except the bullies and conquerors." Messages were already coming in from across known space. Worlds that had been living in fear of aggressive neighbors were requesting membership in the Alliance. Species that had never trusted each other were working together on common projects. Humanity had done more than announce its presence to the galaxy. It had changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization itself. The age of conquest and exploitation was ending. The age of cooperation and mutual defense had begun, and it all started with one human captain who heard a distress call in the darkness of space and decided to answer it. Jake Morrison had wanted to explore the unknown. Instead, he had created a new future for every living being in the galaxy. The stars seemed brighter now, knowing that someone was watching over them.